What is good, everybody? This Kill the Box Score podcast. Typically, your hosts would be me, Kevin, and Rob. But Kevin has some internet issues. He's hoping that he can log on at some point. But nonetheless, we got to continue with the show. So, Rob, how are you tonight?
Oh man, I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm good. Last weekend made me happy. This weekend, not so much.
I feel you. There's Kevin. All right, so
All right.
Kevin, we're going to go ahead and just jump right into it. So the Big Ten returned to the fray this week.
It worked, okay.
We got two upsets in what is week one for the Big Ten. We got Rutgers beating Michigan State, and then Indiana finally breaking through and beating one of these top 10 teams, because Indiana is a team that's had the opportunity to beat some of these top 10 teams from the Big Ten, but they just found a way to fall short. But it didn't happen last night. Some people are upset, saying that the guy was down. I thought he looked off the ground and had touched the pylon from the 2-point conversion. So, Rob, let's start with you. What did you think of the Big Ten's opening week, man?
I think they had a good week, honestly. The top teams that were supposed to perform did well, aside from Penn State. A lot of people were iffy about Penn State being in the top 10 anyway. But you got Michigan, who won real big over Minnesota. You got Ohio State, who came back to win big. They're looking good. The most impressive team, though, in the Big Ten, nobody said it, is Wisconsin. And granted, they only played Illinois, but that quarterback is something else, man. He had a record-setting night on that night. So Wisconsin, to me, looks like a serious threat in the Big Ten.
All right, Kevin, outside of Penn State being upset, what was your biggest takeaway from week one for the Big Ten?
Probably just the randomness of it. I mean, the Rutgers, Greg Schiano's first game back. He's had a rough few years. He's had his name dragged through the mud for sure. That was pretty surprising. But really, I was expecting a bunch of randomness because given how the offseason's been, they're starting their season off, a month late. Mm-hmm. You factor all that in together. I was expecting more upsets, honestly. Purdue over Iowa they were only like a 2-point dog, but that's kind of an upset for me. I thought Iowa would win that, even if it was close. So I was expecting this. I thought Minnesota game might be a little closer with Michigan, but they weren't ready. The boat's got a hole in it, I guess, this year. So I was just the main thing for me was just the randomness of it. And I think it'll continue. I think you'll see a lot of upsets, just kind of like the Big 12. You're going to see a lot of upsets. The only team who you probably won't is Ohio State. And that's just because they're, as it is every year, they're just too loaded. They just got too many good players, too many good athletes. And it's just not a real fair competitive conference in that way, which is why Ohio State wins it over and over again. But hey, yeah.
Yeah, I thought Ohio State looked very, very good yesterday. Outside of running the ball, I think they're gonna have to figure that out. Run the ball again. Especially if they do have to play at Wisconsin or maybe possibly Michigan, because Michigan actually looked impressive last night against a very good Minnesota team.
I don't think Michigan can throw with that rookie QB. I don't think they can throw. I don't think Ohio State can run, because if they couldn't run on Nebraska, I mean, they ain't gonna be able to run on Wisconsin or Michigan.
Well,
all right, y'all, but it's the first week.
That's what I was gonna say.
Cut them some slack.
They only got 8 games though.
Yeah, they look good. They are definitely like because I at one point in the season I had ranked even the Big Ten teams in my personal top 10, and then I thought about it when I was like, they're not even playing right now. So then the next week I didn't rank any of them in it. Now that they had, I put them back in my top 10. So I think that, Ohio State looked every bit the part of what I expected them, except for running the football. But that, again, it is early. They had they had no spring practices just like everybody else. And so I'm sure that'll come along. And I'm interested to see what they do with Trey Sherman, the transfer from Oklahoma. where they put him in the mix. I think they got a couple backs that are probably better than him, at least in their offense. My biggest takeaway is the upsets, like you said, that we saw in the Big 12. We saw early in the SEC even. I think because of the lack of preparation time in the offseason that they typically get. But I believe that it will be Wisconsin versus Ohio State for the Big Ten championship. Moving on, talking about the aforementioned Michigan Wolverines. I actually was thinking they were going to lose yesterday, so props to Michigan, and congratulations to the fans, because I don't buy you guys a bit. I don't buy you ever. And I know, I'm wearing a Sooners jersey, so you can say what you want. At least we make the playoffs. I mean, your coach, what we're going to talk about is one, Jim Harbaugh, I'm sorry. Mr. Harbaugh here came to Michigan, highly lauded. He was going to be the savior. He was going to right all the wrongs that Hoke had and Rodriguez had drug Michigan through. But he hasn't done nothing. I mean, he's finished in third place. And he's getting paid all this money. He's 10-11 versus the top 10, 2-11. 10-14 versus the top 25, and 2-11 versus the top 10. He's came close only twice to beating Ohio State, and I think that was in 16. They went to 3 overtimes, and in the 17 game, I think that's the controversial stop that they gave him the first down on. That Michigan swears that they had stopped him on.
It was an L.
You know what I mean? It was what?
It was an L. That's what it was.
Well, I mean, that's what it was. Another L. Right? So my thing is, the problem is every year when Alton Sports or one of the magazines decide to put out an article about the top 10 coaches in college football, Jim Harbaugh always seems to find his way into that list. And yet this man has only won one conference championship, and that was at Stanford. Right? He's not showed up in the big bowl games like he's supposed to. He don't show up in the big games like his team's supposed to. He don't even win the rivalry games. You can say whatever you want about Bobby Stoops losing national championship games, but Bobby Stoops owned his rivals, right? So my question is, Harbaugh overrated? We'll start with you, Kevin.
I mean, that's a ridiculous question. Of course he's overrated. He's been overrated for since his second year there, at least. Biggest problem Michigan has is they're falling into that territory of like a Texas where, they're getting a bunch of top 15 recruits every year, top 20 at least. But the results are, I mean, even with a coach like him able to put together staffs the way he is, they have a really good staff on paper, but you still can't break through that. Basically, we're a 9-10 win team. Michigan only wins 10 games because of their competition. So if you take out the games, like I've said before, I like to look at the roster rank. If you take out the games where they're not playing teams they have a massive advantage on in terms of talent and recruiting, this is a bad football team. They're just not really that competitive versus the teams like Penn State. Penn State, they break even with. They win, lose, back and forth. And Ohio State obviously owns them. They're their daddy at this point right now. So it's like little son, not little brother right now. And Michigan State will probably beat them too. Michigan State's beaten them, I think, 4 times.
Real quick, the margin of victory in the Ohio State game is I think it's 17.2 or 17.5. And then Ohio State has 2 wins of 29 plus, a win of 23 plus. The games aren't even close. So I know that Michigan will say, well, we had the 3 overtime game and they robbed us on the 4th down. Shut up. You're 0-5. You know what I mean? And I don't want to hear nothing from your fan base until I like Michigan. When Michigan's good, I enjoy the product.
Yeah, I don't like, before we could kick it to Rob, I don't like Michigan. And I'm actually upset we're talking about them because they're overrated every year. We might as well be talking about Tennessee, as far as I'm concerned. That's what I think.
Rob, overrated or not, Jim Harbaugh?
I absolutely disagree with you guys. Absolutely disagree. Look, as Kevin stated, they win 10 games alone based off of the competition. That means they're better than the competition if they're winning 10 games per year. Yeah, they haven't gotten to, his biggest issue is because he hasn't gotten to a national championship. And that's why you guys want to throw the man under the bus along with everybody else.
He ain't even got.
He's gotten to a legit bowl game every year. A legit bowl game in one of the hardest, most competitive conferences in the nation.
No.
In the nation. Ohio State is there. Wisconsin is there. These teams compete for a top 4 spot every single year. And Michigan is right there down the line to the very end. That all being said, I'm giving him an out because he has not had a quarterback. He has not had a good quarterback in that organization since he's been there. Now, maybe that's a knock on his recruiting, and you can give him that, but the man still wins based on what he has. He still wins games.
But he has he's 0-5 versus Ohio State.
That's Ohio State. You got to give him that.
He's either 500 or just a game above versus Michigan State, and that's only because he's won the last couple of years. Before that, Michigan State was owning him. You know what I mean? So you can't say here, I think the man is nothing but a hype job.
Okay, right? But here's my issue. Malachi, here's my issue. You guys say that stuff. People say that stuff and get coaches fired that are good coaches. And it gets somebody fired every year, and then you bring somebody else in to start over, and they can't do nothing with it. The man has wins. He goes up for the most wins in the division every year. He just 1 or 2 losses away. And yeah, he loses to that one team like Ohio State, Michigan State. And he does that every year. So he doesn't get them to where they feel like he should yet. But you got to give the man the longevity and because he wins more games, he has more wins than losses on his resume, period. He has more wins than losses. They started out with how many coaches now in Michigan they try to bring in that hasn't brought them back?
This is their third offensive coordinator in 5 years. And that's my problem too. Because we got told that Jim Harbaugh is a offensive genius. He's an offensive genius. Yet he's had a team that has averaged their defenses averaged number 4 in his 5 years. That means every year at the end of the season, they're one of the 4, statistically 4 best defenses in the country. And they're still losing. And why would you? And I don't think there's anyone here sitting here talking right now that would say the problem with Michigan has been their defense. The problem with Michigan has been how crap they play on the offensive side of the football in the games.
Well, what he's tried to do is he's trying to run the same offense at Stanford. And that worked in the Pac-12 for 2.5 seasons or whatever it was. But in the Big Ten, it just hasn't been as successful. And at Stanford, he also had Andrew Luck. And he doesn't have Andrew Luck here. And he's not developing or recruiting quarterbacks, even the transfers that he recruits in. It's just not working, And the offensive coordinator thing is disconcerting because it's like, hey, you have to replace your coordinator every year or every other year. That's a sign of I don't think he's going to be there much longer, honestly, because the Michigan standards are too high. And
you're going into the next part of the question.
Okay.
That'll work, but hold on real quick. Let me ask you something. Based on y'all logic, Kevin's logic that he wins 10 games, it's only an 8-game season this year.
Really 9 games, but
what if he runs the table?
Let's address that in a second. I'm going to read out some comments. We got some comments. I don't know why they're not. I think that if y'all want us to see your comments in our thing so we can pull it up and pop it up on the screen, you got to go through the Kill the Box Score link. But I'm on my Facebook page real fast. Clarence McLean said, "What's up, brothers?" Clarence, he runs a Facebook group called Clarence McLean Promotions. You can find it in your search bar. Tito Bodega Kid, he said Harbaugh went to a Super Bowl, cut it out. He said he took Cap to a Super Bowl. Enough said.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then he said Harbaugh misses Greg Roman. Okay, but all right. So we outside of Rob, who's completely wrong. Me and you are in full agreement that this dude is overrated, and that he's probably not going to be in Michigan long. So my next question is, does he have to win the conference this year to stay in Michigan?
No, but he needs to beat Ohio State. Like, that's the main thing. You just can't keep losing to Ohio State by double digits every year. It's just not going to work. Look, I don't think any coach should be fired if they're winning 9-10 games in college football over and over. Even if you're coaching at Ohio, unless you're at like Ohio State or Alabama right now, then I could see the argument because that is underachieving. But I don't think you should be fired. With that said, though, you can still be overrated and still keep your job. But he's definitely overrated. Nobody on earth. Look, there's so many coaches in the Big Ten better than him. With Northwestern's coach is better, clearly better. He's done so much more with so much less than Harbaugh ever has in his career. I mean, it's just not even close. I mean, there's just better coaches out there than him, at least based on his body of work at Michigan. So I definitely wouldn't put him in my top 10. That's for sure, or top 20 maybe even. I don't know.
Fire him. Do a thing. Fire him and see what happens. Again, y'all don't. That's a mistake. The man wins games every year. He's not there yet. You got to give him that chance.
He's 5 years.
Yeah, how much he's getting paid?
Hold on. In my opinion, this is like everybody talking about Mike Tomlin every year because Mike Tomlin doesn't.
No, Mike Tomlin's won a Super Bowl.
He's on the hot seat. Jim Harbaugh has won the national championship.
No, he ain't won no national championship, bro.
No, he's won nothing.
He's won one conference championship.
One conference.
In his career.
At Stanford, though. At
Stanford.
And Oregon let him have it.
I'm not a Jim Harbaugh fan, but y'all got to relax on the man. Firing him right now is the biggest mistake they can make at Michigan ever. In the history of Michigan.
So basically you're going to say Michigan should be comfortable being the Oklahoma State Cowboys because that's what they are. They win a bunch of games every year, but they know they're not going to win. They might, we'll play a good game against Oklahoma. We'll give it great effort, but they don't, win the game or they just don't win the conference. You know what I mean? Like, so that's where you want Michigan to be at and be comfortable.
There's only one team that can win a national championship, right? There's only 4 that can actually get a shot at the national championship. So, yeah, I'm excusing him for winning, even though he doesn't make it to that national spotlight. I'm excusing him for that because all in all, he's still your best option. They need better players on Michigan, period, specifically at the quarterback position. That's the best position in all of football. If they're not getting that level of talent at that position, he can only do so much.
Wait, he's supposed to be the quarterback guru, right, guy? That's why they're paying him $7 million a year. It's insane. Yeah. He's supposed to be the quarterback guru. He went and handpicked Patterson. Then we got sold a bill of goods last year. This is gonna be it. Finally, he's got his quarterback. Yeah. He can run his system. It didn't work out so well, man. That guy was horrible, right? Yeah,
Patterson sucks. Listen, Patterson was a top 5 recruit too. He's had talented quarterbacks. It's just the coaching's not there. I think we should move on. I mean, I think it's pretty clear he's overrated. I don't know who would argue with that.
I'll give you all that. I'll give
my man Rob.
I digress. I'll give you that.
All right. So, as we stated earlier, there were 2 upsets in the Big Ten. Both of you seem to, or at least Rob was surprised by the Penn State. I mean, I was surprised that Indiana won the game, but as I stated, Indiana's been close to winning some of these games. For me, the much bigger surprise was Rutgers beating Michigan State because of how poor Rutgers has been in consecutive seasons after season after season. And to see them win that game, and I believe that he was able to turn them around last time he was there. So I'm wondering how long should we give him to turn them around this time? Should we expect the same type of turnaround? You know what I mean? From Rutgers, of course, they were in a different conference then. But which of the games more surprised you of the outcome? Rutgers versus Michigan State or Penn State versus Indiana? We'll start with Rob.
I mean, look, Rutgers beat them by 11. They won 38-27. They put up some points against that Michigan State team. The only thing is to me, in my opinion, disagree or not, I thought Michigan State was limping into the season anyway. I don't think they had a good year last year either. So I feel like they were prone for this setup. And everybody proves it by them not even being in the rankings. They're not ranked in the top 25 in this game. So, it was surprising to me, but with them not being ranked with the year that they had last year, I'm not surprised. I'm more surprised by a number 8 Penn State going into an unranked Indiana team and not getting it done. I don't even think they should have pushed it to overtime. Really, when you're up by 8, you got to protect that lead. Deep in the game, too. It was very late in the game. They were up by 8, and they let them drive down the field and tie it up. So that's the one that surprised me the most, really, is Penn State. To me, you talk about Jim Harbaugh over there and being unexcusable. That was an unexcusable loss yesterday to me for Penn State.
Neither were really that surprising. Michigan State's been going downhill for a while, and Greg Schiano is another coach in the Big Ten who I'd argue is better than Jim Harbaugh because Greg Schiano's done so much more with such a low talent level. Greg Schiano basically found and developed Ray Rice and a bunch of other Rutgers players who went pro around that time. I mean, he's done some impressive stuff at the college level. So, and then, Michigan State's they're just not what they were, 3-4 years ago anymore. And then Indiana always has a game or two each year where they play so tough against whatever big dog that they're playing against. So that wasn't really surprising. What was surprising is how they won. Penn State had 500 total yards versus Indiana having less than 200, I believe. It was just a bunch of turnovers, missed field goals, missed opportunities, and a big fat L for Penn State. And they're going to be sick later in the year. I mean, it's not going to matter much given the nature of this season. But looking back on that game, wow, that was probably the worst loss you can have versus a team you're just clearly better than. So
I agree. I was shocked more by the Rutgers upset simply because, as I stated, Rutgers has been, if you've watched them, it's been painful to watch. There's FCS schools that would have over the last few years would have whooped Rutgers. You know what I mean? And so to see them playing good quality football against a Michigan State team, I don't think anybody expected them to compete for the Big Ten. But to see Rutgers beat them, that was, to me, it's the equivalent of, say, a Vanderbilt upsetting a Tennessee or somebody in the SEC. So moving on, though,
I gotta hold on. I'm sorry, Malachi. I gotta throw this in real quick. Because it's not really an upset or nothing, but it is a surprise. Northwestern 43-3 over Maryland. And Maryland was highly touted because they got Tua's little baby brother over there at the quarterback helm, and he only put up 3 points against a Northwestern team. That was very surprising.
Well, Maryland is a team that, they look great when they're playing not out of non-conference to start the year. I mean, they had the two big wins versus Texas. but they're a team that gets owned when it comes to actual conference play. Because of familiarity. You'll see that a lot, in my opinion. Like you'll see a team that outside of the conference, they're much harder to deal with. But because of familiarity, you're seeing them year in, year out. You know the system, they know the player. A lot of, especially like say, for instance, the Big 12. A lot of these players that were recruited from Texas all play each other and all knew each other in high school. So there's a lot of familiarity there. But moving on, one of the games that I was real interested in yesterday was SMU hosting Cincinnati. I went into the game thinking SMU had a really good chance to win the game, and the outcome was they got smashed. So now Cincinnati, I believe they were sitting at what, 8 or 9. Let me double check that. 9. So they got a win over a top. I think SMU is 16. So it's top 16 school. How high does Cincinnati jump? And looking ahead at their schedule, I don't see too many games that they're not going to win by 2 touchdowns or more. Do they become a real threat along with maybe BYU, who we'll talk about in a little bit, of stealing one of those Power 5 spots? Maybe they're the team me and Rob should have took earlier in the year when we picked, UCF to make the playoffs.
Yeah, but I told you they was coming. I told you they were coming.
Yeah, Cincinnati, they're going to be favored every game the rest of the year. So they've got a really good shot. I like their quarterback. He's smart, he's experienced, and he's a dual threat. He had a really nice 91-yard touchdown run. Looked like a video game. Like when you do the read option, you just go up the middle of the QB. But yeah, SMU, I thought they'd win too, but they just couldn't make plays when they needed to. And I really like the toughness that program has from their coach, from Fickle. It's kind of like with Vrabel with the Titans in the NFL. It's the same kind of thing, like this ex linebacker. There's just this greatness to them. So as far as still in the playoff spot goes, though, again, I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the committee will ever let it happen. I don't think they're interested. And this is the year for it, but still, I just don't see the numbers adding up. I mean, you'd need Georgia to lose again. You need Alabama to. Yeah, I just don't see it. They'll
still put a 2-loss SEC team in over them.
Yeah,
it's nice and cute to think about. Even though me and Rob did take UCF.
They hate
particularly
them.
When I took UCF, I thought that the Pac-12 wasn't going to play at all. You know what I mean? And so that once the Pac-12 entered it, that was the death of any non-Power 5 team getting into the playoffs. Once the Pac-12 came into the fray, because at worst the committee's going to put a Pac-12 team in. I think they want to avoid that at all costs, because I don't think that at the end of the year they're going to say, well, none of these Pac-12 teams are a draw. None of these Pac-12 teams, you know what I mean? So, but what really shocked me, though, was how great Cincinnati's defense played yesterday. That was an SMU team that was rolling up the yards, rolling up the points. I mean, that they held Shane Buechele to, I think, under 220 yards passing, or right along those lines. They shut down the SMU running game. I think their starting running back only had like 30 yards rushing. Cincinnati's defense is legit, and I think they give them a chance versus any school in the country. Now, whether or not that offense, because that's where my doubts are. They're not like one of these high-powered, supercharged like UCF had in the past offenses. They're going to spread you out. Their quarterback's much more mobile. That would be my issue there. But I don't think Cincinnati can potentially steal one of the spots. As I said, I think that the potential of that ended with the Pac-12.
Nah, I disagree, man.
Go ahead.
I think they can steal it, because again, there's still some tough matchups here at the end of the year. You got the conference championships as well coming up at the end of the year, and I think Cincinnati is proving right now they can run the table. But again, I've said it all along. I'm gonna say it again. If there isn't a year where a team like this can get in that's undefeated, that's not one of these top top tier universities, this would be the year that should happen. And
All right,
we're seeing
real fast. We got some more comments. Tyler Hutton, what's up, Tyler? How you doing, bro?
Tyler
Glad,
Hutton?
yeah. Glad you feeling better. I know you had COVID for a while, man. So I'm glad you're feeling better, bro. He said Penn State is overrated like usual, and he said Franklin and Harbaugh are two of the most overrated, overpaid coaches in the country. I can agree with Harbaugh. Like with Franklin, though, I got to give him a little leeway because of everything that Penn State was going through. But Penn State is a team that we have that has been hyped up by the four-letter network because they love that here recently. It used to be the Big 12 and the SEC, but now recently it's the Big 10 and the SEC. Over the last 5 or 6 years, you know, what I mean, back in the BCS era, it was the Big 12 and the SEC, right? So now it's the Big 10 a little bit more. Penn State is a team they do like to hype up on TV. He said Loxley is legit though. I think he's talking about the quarterback. He said Cincinnati is legit and that pass defense is 210 in the nation, but BYU is the best of Group 5 teams. We're gonna get to them in a minute. Tony Bodega said, I agree. I like that. I like Trey Lance too. And then my homie Ray Hilton chimed in. What's up, Ray? His son plays for the Ducks here. Their 10A team. They play no games. They beat boys 72-0, 45-0. They win rings. Salute to you, sir, and the Ducks. So moving on to our next topic after that. I got to look it up too. Okay, we're going to react to Alabama's beatdown of both Georgia and Tennessee because we didn't get to come on last Saturday and talk about that, our previews. God dang, Alabama, who started the season off after the Missouri game and gave me a lot of questions on defense the last 2 weeks, seems to have gotten it together. But it's hard to gauge because Georgia's offense is not really that good. And Tennessee is who they are. So while they've had these games before, particularly the Ole Miss game, where it just looked like they couldn't stop anybody. And if that continued the rest of the year, they were in a lot of trouble. One bad thing did come out of yesterday's win over Tennessee, and that was Waddle being injured for the rest of the year. I think that's going to really affect them moving forward. Although they recruit really well, man, and they got some burners outside of him over there at wide receiver. But the last 2 weeks has Bama answered some questions for you? Do you now think because you now give them a shot versus Clemson? We'll start with Kevin.
I was giving them a shot before, so for me, it's not anything special or anything new. They're just too talented. They're too deep. They're too well coached. And Mac Jones, Mac 10, he can play. Anyone who watched him last year knows he can play. He can throw. He's got legit arm talent. He could play at the next level. We'll see. But number one thing I like about them, though, is that Alabama's in a rare position where they haven't, I think it's 2 years now. They're on a 2-year hiatus and not winning the national championship. Mm-hmm. So, Saban's got all the motivation. Like he's not happy. He's not happy. And Alabama's surprised us before in situations where it looked like they had a worse team than what they have now, or at least on paper. So I expect them in the SEC, like looking at LSU, Ole Miss, they beat already. I'm trying to think who else it is. Auburn isn't that good this year. It looks like Alabama's going to just cruise on through to the SEC West championship. And they just beat Georgia, who's not scaring anybody, with their offense. So, I mean, they should easily win the SEC. They should run the table. And then it's just a matter of, okay, when do we play Clemson? That's what it's going to be. It's going to be Alabama.
What I meant by that is after the Missouri game, the first half of the Missouri game, I was like, yo, Alabama's got the best defense in the country. It's got the best defense in the country. And then
that was premature.
I mean, it was premature, but you even agreed that on the reaction show the next day or the next show. So look, then came those games. I was like, oh my God, they're horrible. They're horrible. I was like, you know what I mean? But so I had like, yeah, they'll make the playoffs, but I gave them no chance against Clemson, who looks super solid on both sides of the football. But after the last 2 weeks, I got to admit, they've played much better on defense. And if they continue to do that moving forward with the way that offense is playing and the way that Jones, who is, you could argue Jones should be the Heisman over Trevor Lawrence. Even though they both played high level, I think most people would have Trevor at this point, but Mac has been balling, man. That kid's been balling, so I give him his props there. And until the last 2 weeks, I just gave them no chance in that game against Clemson if they played. Clemson's looked that dominant. Clemson, again, blew out a good team. Not quite what was the week before, 77-3, 70. That was crazy. I was like, my goodness. They're going to stop scoring points. Poor Georgia Tech, man. Before we move on.
Clemson's blowing out bums.
That's
the
true.
whole conference. The ACC is terrible. It was terrible last year. It's one of the worst seasons as far as competitiveness goes that conference has had, and it ain't much better this year. Not really.
Tyler said Waddle's injury is huge. Best wide receiver in the nation. You know, he is an Alabama fan.
Yeah, he is. And FSU.
The homie Ray came back, said, I appreciate it, homie. We put in that work yesterday. We won 45 zip, and they be killing boys. They have no, you know what I mean? They just keep scoring.
Sure.
Hey, I think that's the way it should be, bro. If you don't like us running up the score, stop me.
Yeah, I would have scored more. Yeah, I would have kept putting the ball in the end zone. Why not?
And then Tyler said, if Bama's defense don't tighten up, we in trouble. They get sucked into coverage, miss tackles, and have zero pass rush. He said, well, I mean, there's some teams that can score some points in the SEC still, bro. They haven't played LSU. LSU can still score points. Their problem so far this year was their defense, but they seem to have gotten that right in the last few weeks, which real fast, that was a theme we had discussed about how that the defenses were needing to catch up because the points were getting ridiculous on both the NFL and the college football level. But the last couple of weeks, we've seen that come back to earth, particularly in the NFL. So I think that as the year moves along, you'll see the defenses start to get better and better and better, and it'll be the teams that rode the wave when the ships were going bad. They get into that position that once their defense is like at Alabama, like once their defense starts playing up to what their potential, they're going to be extremely dangerous, particularly with that offense. He also said, Tyler said, Michi stepping up is huge. Bama is strikingly similar to last year's LSU national championship team. Decent defense and record-breaking offense. And I mean, I can see the similarities because up until like the playoffs, LSU's defense was not particularly good last year. And then they just got hot in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
That depends what you're looking at. If you're looking at raw numbers, it didn't seem too good. But if you're looking at like adjusting for pace and you're looking at opponent, I'd say they were easily a top 20 defense, or top 30 for sure the whole season, And when the playoffs came, they couldn't stop Clemson, they couldn't stop Oklahoma, but
they did stop it. No, they did. That's what I'm saying. That's what was surprised by most people is the fact that
you're not supposed to shut down Ole Miss either, though. Ole Miss scores points on everybody, basically.
But they shut down Oklahoma, and then they you know what I mean? They did rather well versus Clemson. I think they won by double digits. Yeah. So,
but when you got a lead and the other team has to pass, it makes it a lot easier and a lot more simple.
I mean, it was a close game.
Scoring on everybody, so the offense was helping the defense out a lot.
All right, moving on from Alabama and Tennessee. Before we talk about Clemson, let's talk about BYU. Last week they had moved up to number 12. They remain undefeated this week with another impressive performance. Much like Cincinnati, there is that hurdle of they're not in a Power 5 conference. BYU appears to be a threat. But do you consider them a threat to one of these Power 5 champions, Kevin?
Listen, I'm 10 minutes. I live 10 minutes from Provo. It's snowing right now. That's why I'm wearing this on my head. And people are going kind of crazy over BYU this year. But no, I don't even think they're. I think if the Pac-12 was playing and they had to play games versus Pac-12 teams, they'd be in trouble. I don't think the offense is as good as it's being advertised right now. Zach Wilson's getting a lot of hype. I like Zach Wilson. He reminds me of like a slightly better version of Baker Mayfield. You know, he's what people thought Baker might be. But I just watched them versus Texas San Antonio. I think it was Texas San Antonio. I just saw, I don't know. I just saw a limited offense. I don't see the big playmaker there, and I don't see an O line that's like, asserting itself week in, week out. I just think they've got enough holes that they could be beat by even someone on their schedule now. Let alone if they had to play let's see, I'm trying to think of a team that would make the playoff. They had to play Georgia. It would get ugly for BYU. It would get ugly. It would get Alabama, all these teams, it would get ugly, and they get ugly fast. Mississippi State. They play Mississippi State tomorrow. I would like Mississippi State by 10 points, to put it in perspective.
Rob.
So I'm looking at, this is ESPN's chances to win out as far as the undefeated teams go. BYU is slightly above Clemson and Ohio State. They're above Oregon even, and Oregon hasn't started yet. They're right below Alabama as far as their percentage to win out. So I think that being said, again, I can't stress this enough. If you're going to put a team that goes undefeated in a non-Power 5 conference this year, why not do it now? Why not do it now? Because there's teams like BYU that are really balling right now. And you got to give them credit for balling out. They're covering the spread every single week. If you're a gambling person out there, bet on BYU every week. They're covering the spread every single week, no matter who they face. And based off these projections, ESPN has them winning out. Over Ohio State, over Clemson, over Oregon even at this juncture. And it's like 1% below Alabama. So
what you're saying there is the same reason though that people like me and Kevin said they don't have no chance. The reason they have because the reason they have such a high percentage chance to win out is the lack of competition on the schedule, and the lack of competition. Like, now, you know what? You sounded like a guy. Let's take it to a boxing. You're sounding like a guy who thinks that just anybody, the competition's all the same. Oh, he's 20-0. He's 20-0. He can't nobody beat him. Let's throw him in there with the champ. Right? That's what you sounded like.
I have to do it to you, Malachi, because Teofimo Lopez beat Lomachenko, and Lomo has a way better resume.
Wait, which one of us said that was going to happen?
Way better resume.
Wait, which one of us said that was going to happen, though?
Based on the logic, so I say that to say this, based on the logic that you just said, it's just like the saying, any given Sunday, any given Saturday. Any given Saturday. If you want to put me up against yours on any given Saturday, I'm going to pick BYU. BYU's going to compete. They're going to be able to surprise people there. And that's not the only team that I like that's undefeated. I like these smaller schools right now that are coming in undefeated. I like BYU. I like Cincinnati. Guys, I like Liberty. Liberty balled out yesterday. That quarterback had over 600 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's a Heisman candidate sleeper. And then you want to throw out this competition shit to me in a COVID year? It's all the same level playing field. Let these guys compete. Let them go out there.
It's not even close. It's the competition. Like, bro, no, it's not even close. It's not even close. You're talking about teams that recruited down in the 90s versus having to play teams week in, week out that are between 1 and 50 and 70. You know what I mean? It's not even close. The competition level's not even close.
I'll agree
That's
with
particularly
you
for Liberty.
but any other year, but this year. I'll agree with you any other year, but this year. And look at the stats. Liberty played Syracuse better than Clemson did. They did. They outplayed Syracuse better than Clemson did. Go back
Still
to that
familiarity. You know what I mean? It's
that's an
yes.
excuse.
Clemson just beat Syracuse by like 40 points. I mean, once you pass 30 points, it really doesn't matter what the final score is. It was a beating, you know. It's like the game wasn't close.
By the way,
I don't know.
I'm the one who took Tiafimo between me and you, buddy.
You did, but
I
that's
remember
besides
that.
the
I'm
point.
shocked.
That's besides the point. We're on a football podcast. We're going to talk football. Now, hold on, Kevin. Let me back this up. Let me go back to the stats.
I'm shocked. I didn't know Lomachenko well. Oh boy.
Yeah, Tiafimo beating.
Wow.
Yeah, we're at Liberty.
That's upset of the year.
We're looking at Liberty, okay?
Wow.
Pull up Liberty.
Once you get to 30 points, it don't count, but they still beat them, man. They beat them better. They played an overall better game than Clemson.
All right.
But Clemson just blew them out.
He. You know what's funny? We're gonna move on. We're gonna keep the same thing. Rob hates little bitty boxers. Can't stand little bitty boxers, but apparently he loves little bitty college schools.
I believe
little football program that could.
I still believe UCF won the national championship when they went undefeated. Damn it!
I agree with Rob on that. I agree.
Real quick, Todd said
Rob.
he said that Zach Wilson. I think he's talking about BYU's quarterback. He said that he is this year's Jordan Lynch, legit Heisman threat and first round pick. He also said you could say the same thing about Clemson with the competition or lack thereof. And he came back. He said he liking what Rob said about Liberty. He says Hugh Freeze doing his thing at Liberty. Yeah, they are scoring some points, but they beat Baylor a couple years ago at Baylor. So Liberty, I would like to see them good because you know, I mean, it would be interesting to see a team like that propel themselves. Wouldn't that be a great rivalry between the Catholics and the Protestants? If Liberty, that would be
awesome. That would be awesome.
I would say real quick, Hugh Freeze, that's another coach whose name you look at his resume as a head coach in college football and compare it to Jim Harbaugh. I'm just saying. Just compare them and tell me.
Now that
you
absolutely right about that.
Hugh Freeze is a good coach, you know, all things considered.
Absolutely.
All right, so closing out college football, we're gonna ask one last question amongst this. We're gonna ask this about Clemson. Clemson, to me, has looked head and shoulders the best team in the country. Doesn't look this year like anyone could compete with them. Now, whether or not that's going to remain true with Ohio State finally starting, but with the question I still have coming out of yesterday is them not being able to run the football against Nebraska. If you struggle to run the football against Nebraska, that you definitely going to struggle to run the football against Clemson. Of course, that game will be much later in the year, and so Ohio State will have time to have figured out that issue. So I'm not really overly concerned with it. But just speaking of watching yesterday, in my opinion today, they would have issues beating Clemson. I think everyone else, Alabama, until I see them dominate a quality offense and not just Georgia and Tennessee. I would have Clemson winning that game by double digits. I think it would be very high scoring for a while until Clemson figured them out how to stop Mac, particularly with the Waddle injury not being able to return for the year. For you, is it Clemson and everyone else, or is there some teams you can see out there potentially competing with Clemson? We'll start with Rob.
I already told you Notre Dame beats them. I already told you. Notre Dame beats them. That's the way I feel. And people been doubting me here at my local spot that I go to every week about this, to where somebody's giving me 3 touchdowns. They're giving me 3 touchdowns for Notre Dame against Clemson on a big bet.
Nice.
I feel strongly about that. Notre Dame beats them, y'all. That's the way I feel.
Did you watch the game? yesterday, though, they didn't look that impressive. Like, I like Notre Dame, too. I would put them in my top 4 right now. But they didn't look that impressive yesterday. And that's not a very good team.
They haven't all year, but you know what? There's that defense and the way that they rally and the way that they're coached, that discipline. It's really a discipline thing that I'm seeing with them. They have a lot of discipline on that field. And and people say they don't look good, they don't look this and that. But what do? They're winning
They just
games.
blew out Pittsburgh by 40 points.
They're winning games.
That was yesterday, right? I'm talking about the game before that. Who were they playing the week before? It was NC State?
Virginia or something like that.
Louisville. It was
Louisville. Yeah.
Louisville.
They weren't that impressive against Louisville. Louisville got blown out this year, so.
Look,
Neither did FSU.
Right. It is what it is. Okay. They look bad against Louisville. They look bad against Duke. Why? Because they didn't quote unquote cover the spread. But they still won the game. They still won the game and won it. You know, they were never in trouble of losing those games. They came out and did what they're supposed to do. That being said, that's why they catch Clemson. Because Clemson's going to sit here and think they are who we think they are. And guess what? Another team shows up. Because they're going to show up to play Clemson.
Okay.
I think that normally in the year, people just make a lot of excuses early in the year based on results. Oh, that was then. So if we lost or didn't play well, it doesn't matter. But normally it's just an excuse. This year, given the offseason and everything, I think you can make an argument that you can, I don't want to say throw out what happened in the games, like the first 2-3 games teams play, but definitely put a little bit of an asterisk on them. So I think by the end of the year, Ohio State and Alabama for sure, maybe Notre Dame, but those first 2 for sure, they would definitely be able to play with Clemson just fine. It's just a matter of Ohio State getting enough playmakers. They lost a lot of good playmakers for them and their scheme and what they do last year. And yeah, they just re-up on them like it's nothing. Same thing with Alabama. I don't think Waddle's that big of a loss because they'll just plug some other receivers in. You know, I'm sure they have them. They got them. They've been recruiting them. They got them there. So with that said, Clemson should be the favorite. They should definitely be the favorite. You know, they've got the best quarterback out of all those teams. They got the best coaching staff of all those teams. They're just as talented as all those teams. They're just as deep. So I mean, but that conference is weak. The ACC is a weak conference. Think about it. FSU and Miami are the 2 next best talented teams in the conference, and neither of them are in the same stratosphere as Clemson. So that tells you that anyone who
did you say that FSU is the most
from a recruiting standpoint?
Okay.
Those are the 2. It's FSU and Clemson above everybody else, and then Miami and North Carolina and like one other team are like in the 20s somewhere. But Miami and FSU really have the best talent, you know. And then North Carolina, I don't think Clemson's isn't gonna. You know, they just destroyed Miami already. So, and FSU is terrible this year. So, I mean, it's just not gonna happen. Like Clemson's just gonna cakewalk.
I gotta say it. They beat North Carolina.
They did. Shout out to Rob. That was a hell of a call.
They beat North Carolina.
North Carolina, you know, one of them teams this year particularly that they got exposed. I don't know. They got exposed. They're not gonna like what they do the very next week. They they completely destroyed.
Who was missing their quarterback? NC State was missing their quarterback. Otherwise, I don't know. That game was a lot closer.
But Pittsburgh was missing their quarterback yesterday, I believe. I think Pickett didn't play yesterday. I mean, so all right. Well, we got to move on because we only got 30 minutes before the game start, and we got to close before the game starts. So let's jump right into the NFL. For me, it's a hard yes right now until I see Alabama play much better on defense, and until I get more of a dosage of what Ohio State is going to be this year, and I get some answers concerning are they going to be able to run the ball. For me, it's just a hard guess. It's Clemson and then everybody else. All right. Jumping into the NFL. NFL, we're going to start off with the fact Baker Mayfield had a rough Sunday last week. He was dealing with a rib injury. He was yanked out of the game the first time in his NFL career that he was pulled from a game not due to an injury or score differential. My opinion is he probably shouldn't have been playing last week. Unless they stated he had a rib injury. He had injured in the game before. But when Baker's played within the system this year, he's been average, like a quarterback that you can win with, as long as they stay within the system. To his defense, this is his third or second offensive coordinator in 3 years. That's not what you want when you draft a guy at number one that you're depending to build your franchise around. You don't want them to have to switch up offensive coordinators every other year. You want some potential of growth there. You want some familiarity and longevity at that coaching position, but they haven't got it. He hasn't particularly played well. The 2 games that he's played this year that they lost, he's played very bad in. You can make the argument that it is his fault that they lost the games. But again, I don't. Last week I put a lot of that on. He shouldn't have been playing. You watch some of them throws he was trying to make downfield. Clearly, he wasn't himself because he's got more arm strength than that.
Did he complete the pass?
To the other team intercepted it.
Oh, well, that's him being himself.
Okay, all right.
I mean,
he won offensive rookie of the season.
6 interceptions. I mean, he has a point. 6 interceptions already on the year. Look, Baker Mayfield is Baker Mayfield. Okay, he was. I hate to say it, America. I'm sorry. He was a hype job out of Oklahoma. Okay, he was a hype job coming into the league, and he just hasn't lived up to his potential. Now, if you want to talk about getting on Jim Harbaugh for his woes in the NCAA, you need to talk about the truth about Baker Mayfield.
That's not even a comparison, bro.
He is not the reason why they're winning.
Baker Mayfield is not every year in, year out, somehow finding himself in a list of the top 10 coaches in college football, like with no wins.
You're absolutely right, which means he sucks. He sucks.
You're the one that just said Harbaugh didn't suck.
Harbaugh doesn't. But everybody, I guarantee you, if you ask a couple of people right now about Baker Mayfield, they're like, oh, he's balling. Why? Because they think Cleveland's winning? No, they're not winning because of Baker Mayfield. They're winning because of the matchups. They're winning because of the team. They're not winning because of Baker Mayfield.
I agree.
Rob got a point. The gap between fantasy football and real football has been narrowed because of the fantasy football's taken over so much. And most of these guys, they pretend that they're separating the two, but they're really not. And if you go back to definitely before the season, but like Baker Mayfield, for those who don't know, is a fantasy football hero. Not because he's actually done anything, because he hasn't, but because his profile was so great coming out of college. So him failing is a really bad red mark on their paper for all the advanced stats and everything. So they need him to be great. So every year it's like, oh, Baker, well, his O-line was terrible, and this happened, and he gets Odell Beckham, and like Eli Manning's terrible, but this guy can't give him the ball though, the way Eli could. It's a joke. Baker Mayfield's a terrible quarterback. I want to talk about the 2018 class in general, though, because this is one of my greatest accomplishments. I don't think I've ever nailed a class as well as I did this one. And it was just, it was clear.
Like Josh Allen. And you got lucky. Oh, you got lucky. No, quarterbacks don't outside. Like, I give Buffalo a lot of credit. I'll give them a lot of credit because you don't go from being a trash can when we're talking completion percentage. You don't go from being completely inaccurate in college to, okay, he's not even really that accurate in the NFL. He's just not, you know what I mean? And he does turn the ball over. Like, he's got lucky. The Rams should have beat him. The refs completely gave that game to the Buffalo Bills, right?
Okay, listen.
Here's the thing. The reason they got whooped up by Tennessee is his trash play, right?
No, it's not.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Game script. It's game script, and it's the reason why Baker's terrible, and he's going to be a backup quarterback sooner than later, because the only way Baker can succeed in the NFL is the same way he only succeeded at Oklahoma. The game script was, we're OU. We can run the ball for 200 plus yards every game, no matter who we're playing in our conference, because all the defenses are garbage, basically. And I'm always up. I'm always in favorable third downs. When you give him everything on a silver platter, Baker Mayfield's a solid, okay QB. But he doesn't have the ability to make any game-changing plays for you because it's just not in his skill set. And then on top of that, he also can't read certain blitzes. He can't read certain coverages. He still can't 3 years in. He's a backup QB, and the Browns took him number one. And this is why their franchise is trash, because they just, for some reason, they keep hiring the worst
than who
scouts.
you had number one, which was your homie from
Listen. I had Sam Darnold. I had Sam Darnold number one. I had Lamar number two. I had Josh Allen 5. I wish I'd had him higher. I actually wish I had Baker higher because I had Baker number 8, and he isn't the 8th worst quarterback in that class. But the bottom line is, it's your situation matters, but also your play matters. And Baker's situation has been an A situation. The Browns these 3 years, this is the best collection of talent.
You say the offensive line was an A situation last year. They've gotten better this year.
Listen.
When your guard, we talk too much.
Listen, when your guard, your center, and your other guard are all really good players, you've got a good old line. You don't need superstars at tackle to perform in the NFL. Look at Carson Wentz right now. Like, yeah, he's played bad. He also has the worst O-line on paper in the league right now. Yet
Carson Wentz might be the most overrated quarterback right now in the NFL.
Well, yeah, he might be. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. As long as you're not talking to someone who thinks Baker's
credit is they wanted to give Carson Wentz, as much as they push Carson Wentz as being great, he's been very average to me watching him play. And he might be the most overrated quarterback in the NFL.
He's still winning games. He's still the number one in the division. I don't care if it's
the division's terrible.
I don't care.
In all the sports,
they're number one.
All the sports,
they're number one.
In sports, man.
Listen. I just want to say one last thing. One last thing about Baker.
We got to move on from Baker.
Listen. He's gonna be a backup quarterback by mid next season. He'll be a backup quarterback. He won't even make it to the rookie contract. And I said that before the draft in 2018. Thank you. Okay.
I agree. Much bigger news in the shortcomings of Baker Mayfield was the news that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, fresh off a demolishing of the Green Bay Packers, which I rather enjoyed watching, have signed AB, Antonio Brown, who's swiftly turning into football's version of About Billions from boxing. We're talking about Adrian Broner. I don't see much difference in the two, and it's appropriate they both got AB for nicknames right now. I don't see the difference between the two of them. Joining Tampa Bay, does that suddenly make Tampa Bay a Super Bowl? Because I had him as a contender for the NFC title, not their Super Bowl. Now I'm thinking maybe they could challenge for this whole thing right now, and that'll be a beautiful thing to see Tom Brady go and prove that he's the greatest quarterback of all time to his naysayers who still want to claim that Peyton is, and then they try to throw it out there. Well, Peyton won Super Bowls with two different teams. Anyway, Rob, does AB push him over the top for you? Does that make him a Super Bowl contender real fast?
Not yet. They still have to figure it out. Listen, they still have to figure it out on offense, and the defense has to get better. And they showed what they're capable of doing last week against the Aaron Rodgers, but you have to be able to do that week in and week out. Now, they're already talking about throwing Antonio Brown in the mix in week 9. So that means he has no camp, no nothing. You just sign the man and he comes into play, which is fine. I think that'll be good for like maybe 1 touchdown per week, but you still got to get him in shape. You still got to get him in sync with the play calling. You have to get him in sync. And look, I love this move for Tampa Bay because of the risk versus reward factor. But this is already a team, guys, who is just now trying to figure out their offense. And you throw a brand new weapon on offense into the mix. They'll figure it out. And then come playoff time, that's when you can say, yeah, they'll push for the Super Bowl or not. But as far as right now, I need to see the product on the field.
Kevin?
So the Buccaneers have been a Super Bowl contender since they signed Tom Brady. And I get it. There's no offseason. That's honestly the only reason. I think people were really kind of sleeping on that because of COVID and everything. But when you get Tom Brady and you have that kind of weaponry, we already saw this in 2007. We already saw what happens when you give him weapons like that. So, and then their O-line's not bad. I wouldn't call it great, but it's not bad. They've been pretty good this year. They're probably top 10 this year. And the defense was great last year. Jameis Winston just kept losing games because he plays losing football. Honestly, the moment they cut Jameis Winston, they might have been a Super Bowl contender, by subtraction. So
Winston's got a job, right? Winston's got a job. Where's Mariota at?
He's the third string quarterback in Tampa.
Where's Mariota? Where's Mariota at?
Quarterback in Oakland or in Las Vegas.
So they're both backups.
That's fine. I don't know why
I'd much rather have Winston than Mariota. But
you always did, though.
I digress. Go ahead.
That was a shot, Kevin. That was a shot.
I just want to know who has more wins. But anyways, Tampa adds AB, and they were already great at wide receiver, though. So I couldn't push them over the top anyways because they already have Godwin and Evans and Scotty Miller, who's underrated, and Gronkowski starting to get into form. So they got Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. They got plenty of running backs. They just, at skill position, they're already good set. So it doesn't put them over the top, but I will say this, one last thing. AB allows Godwin to go in the slot, and Scotty Miller's just going to be off the field. And if Godwin's in the slot, that's where he's just a game wrecker. That's what he did all year last year because AB's outside, and then you got Mike Evans, and it's going to be tough on teams in the playoffs trying to match up with these guys. Be without AB, let alone with him. So,
all right. Well, we got like 5 minutes. All right, we're gonna close out the show with our locks of the week. Kevin, when you gave us this, you took out the Bills and Jets game and said that wasn't part of the discussion. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns over Cincinnati. Baker's going to bounce back. One of his best games of the year was against Cincinnati earlier in the season, which was at Cincinnati, I believe. This one's at Cleveland. Baker does play better at home. I got this
game in Cincinnati.
Is it? The last game was at Cleveland. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this game's in Cincinnati. Yeah, Baker is probably an L.
Yeah, I'm going to take that back. I'm not going to go with them. I'm going to go with Dallas.
No. You can't renege on that.
I'll stick with the Browns. The Browns are going to Cincinnati. Baker's going to play outstanding. He's got his best game of the year. Cleveland over Cincinnati is my lock of the week.
All that shit talking for you to pick them as your lock. You know I have to give you crap about that, Malachi, because I don't get to that often. You generally right over me. You've been so far anyway.
All right, who's your lock of the week, Kevin?
My lock is Arizona over Seattle. Yeah, I expect even with the bye week, I expect Arizona to just. I expect them to win at home. They've got a pretty well-rounded team this year, and it's a division game, and they're at home. And Seattle's offense has been great, but this Arizona defense is pretty legit. I mean, they've been matching up well with people. Buda Baker's been killing it. Patrick Peterson's been following people around. I think they're going to put him on DK today and see what happens. DK's had his way with pretty much every corner who's came his way this year, though. That turns out height, weight, speed still matters in the NFL. So, but I like Arizona to just get a big division win and knock Seattle off.
Okay, Rob, who's your lock of the week?
Tampa Bay over Las Vegas. I think that momentum carries over from last week. I think Carr is less of a quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. I feel like Tampa Bay defense is going to come together and they're going to blow them out. Not only they're going to win, they're going to blow them out.
Oh, wow. It called for a blow.
And let's not forget, they got issues on that offensive line this week.
All right, so my lock was Cleveland. Kevin's lock was Arizona over Seattle, and your lock is Tampa Bay over the Raiders. We'll when we come back Saturday, we'll see which one of our locks was true and which one of them got broken. So anyway, I hope everybody who watches the show had a good time. We're out. Y'all have a wonderful Sunday. All right,
Now, look how you gonna quit hating